Hey, what's up everyone, it's your girl Brandy Shanae, and today I'm with, today I'm at an event for Jacqueline Woodson. For Booktubeathon I had read If You Come Softly, which was by her, and she's in Columbus today, so I'm going to be pretty much listening in on her conversations, and I also got a few books from her. First book that I got is Jacqueline Woodson is Harbor Me. This literally just came out, so I'm super excited to read it. And on top of that, I got some book swag, which is a bookmark promoting her newest book, Harbor Me. And then for my children, I couldn't resist. I had Shoei, which isn't that cover gorgeous, you guys? It's beautiful. And then on top of that, I also have The Day You Begin. And I thought my daughter would just fall in love with this book. But yeah, stay tuned everyone, and you'll get to see her, and I'll probably do a little bit of shooting a little bit of her as she's speaking in her conversations. But stay tuned for more, you guys.
Uncapping of the water. Thanks a lot. This is pretty exciting to be talking to an ambassador, the National Ambassador for Young People's Literature, and what does that mean to you?
It means I basically get to go around the country and preach the gospel of literature. The importance of reading, the importance of connecting with other people, the importance of connecting around literature, and talking about the way literature can change us and bring us together and give us hope and impact us. So it basically means a lot of travel. Sound people, come on, help a sister out with this.
Mine's like hanging by a thread here. The Day You Begin, there's a little allusion, or I don't know, it's a reflection in a pool. And in that story, the boy is feeling like he's outside of everything. But in the reflection in the pool, he has a book in his hand and it's opened. I mean, it kind of infuses everything.
Yeah, and out the part of him that's not the reflection has the closed book.
Right.
So I love that book, and I love just the way Rafael Lopez is the illustrator for that book, and just the way he used the rulers to talk about the way young people measure themselves, all of us, against other people, and all the stuff that's really implicit is beautifully rendered.
So much of what you write is poetic. I mean, again, that word infused comes to me again because it's everywhere in your writing. And that's not always the case.
Well, for me,
with you it is.
Yeah, I feel like I try to blur the line between the narrative and poetry. Both of them are equally important to me. And so I really try to make the writing, it has to sound a certain way as well as look a certain way on the page. And so I really try to have the two meet somewhere in the middle where there is a lyricism to the work and at the same time a narrative arc.
You just took everything and all the words on face value. I know that was probably pretty intentional. You're a pretty intentional writer.
Yeah, I think that as readers, we meet the author halfway, and so we're bringing our own experience to the narrative, and as a result, I don't like to give a lot of description. I like to do brushstrokes and let the reader fill in the rest of it, and especially around description, not so much around emotion, but definitely around description.
Yeah. Your two new books for young readers resonate with our time, so Harbor Me is about kids dealing with the circumstances of right now what they're dealing with. I mean, what we're talking about every day, what I'm talking about almost every day on the show, is all these intersections of love and hate and understanding and misunderstanding. And I'm wondering how you find those voices of children today, because so many adults will say, I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know what, how do you talk to them? Can you speak for them?
Yeah, Madeline L'Engle, who wrote Wrinkle in Time, said when we write, we should write remembering the children we were, because the essence of childhood doesn't change, right? We want to fit in, we want to belong, we want our families to be intact. We want to feel love, we want to feel like we're a part of something, and we want to feel sure. And so I think I do start from that emotional element of childhood and what young people want, because it's the same thing all of us want, no matter how old we get. And then in the case of Harbor Me, we can look at what the young people are going through and say, this is current, right? It's not. People have been dealing with deportation, the school to prison pipeline, the prison industrial complex, the killing of young black boys at the hands of police. So much of that stuff has been so ingrained in our community for decades, if not longer. So these kids, they're because of social media and because of the way news is disseminated now, it might feel new to some communities, but to communities of color and to people who have lived with these things for many, many years, it's not new. And so it's stuff that I've always been thinking about, and now having a son who's 10 years old, I feel like it gets magnified, right? What's going to become of my boy's brown body in this system of things, and what's going to become of my friends who I love, whose parents might not be citizens of this country. Like those questions that first me as an individual have to ask myself all the time, but also I know I'm not alone in the asking of these questions.
I think, you're right. I mean, I was making this assumption, and I think what it feels like is through all the pain and suffering right now, we're finally talking about it pretty openly. I mean, we have conversations about how to have conversations, about how to talk about it.
Yeah, I think people of color have been talking about it.
Yes.
I think the rest of us. And I'm glad those conversations are happening more broadly now, but for us, it's been about survival. It's been about how do we save our children, how do we save ourselves, how do we get them safely into adulthood. I mean, you read, I'm sure you read Ta-Nehisi's book, Ta-Nehisi Coates' Between the World and Me, which is a kind of retelling of James Baldwin's Letter to My Nephew, where he's talking to his son Samori about how to survive in this country as a brown body, and in his case as a young boy, and Ta-Nehisi's own survival. But I think I think in certain communities, you have to have transparency. You have to constantly talk about this stuff for your children's survival.
Painful conversations?
Not always. I mean, I don't feel like, I think they're hard conversations sometimes to have, but I think eventually it makes our kids stronger, it makes them smarter, it makes them more aware of themselves in the world and themselves as gifts in the world, right? Because in that conversation, you're also talking about how brilliant and beautiful and valuable they are to the system. So I think there is kind of almost a celebration of the body to explain why the body needs to be careful.
Teachers in the room?
Say it again?
Today we were talking about teaching, about because of what happened in Akron a few weeks ago with diversity or an implicit bias training. It was an exercise, and it asked the teacher asked the middle schoolers to pick 8 out of 12 characters that were described. So there was the female movie star who had been recently sexually assaulted. There was the Asian boy who had been orphaned. There was the angry black medical student. There were a lot of kind of stereotypes in there too. And anyways, one of the kids came home, showed his mom the paper, just because like kids do. The mom had kind of a snit fit, and it kind of blew up in Chagrin, yeah, I guess it's Cuyahoga Falls. And so it got us thinking about it. Well, how do you teach? Everyone's saying that's the wrong way to teach. So they're supposed to pick 8 of those 12 people, and they would take them. The Earth is doomed. It's gonna explode the next day, and they're gonna get to take them to a safe planet somewhere else. Who would you take? And they're supposed to elicit, or engender conversation and all that kind of stuff. Well, it didn't. It got people in an uproar. Apparently, it's been taught for about 30 years in one form or another, but it got us thinking, and that's why I asked about teachers in the audience, because the issue of teacher is the stranger in the room. That it's actually the kids that are teaching each other more than anything, and the best teacher lets them do that. And then, of course, harbor me, that's the structure of the lesson.
Yeah, that whole idea of get out of the way, right? So I feel like I learned it in writing for young people, right? The first thing, I think Roald Dahl talks about, you have to get the grown-ups out of the way so the children can have their adventure, and so he's the king of killing grown-ups off, right? So that kids can have their adventures. But I think of it in terms of Miss Laverne, the teacher here, who knew enough about her students to say, I'm going to give you room to talk without me there, without you thinking that there's an adult judging you or coaching you or trying to tell you what to say in some way. Like, this is your time, this is your safe space. And I think everybody needs safe space, right? I think a lot of times people don't understand why we need rooms with only women in them, right? So women can feel safe, where we need rooms with only people of color in them, so people of color could feel safe. And for Ms. Laverne, she's saying, here's your safe space in this room. Nothing you can say is wrong. You just cannot be unkind, and you can't use your phone. Like that, those are the boundaries, and then the conversations that they come up with as a result of that.
It's an interesting mixture of children, though. They don't look alike, they don't think alike. And that's the best kind of room, right? It's very easy in some way to be in a room where everyone looks like you and everyone thinks like you, but what is it like to be in a room where people don't look like you and people don't think like you? That's when you begin to get challenged. And you can still feel safe.
Yeah, exactly. So, February 12th, 1963. I am born on a Tuesday at University Hospital, Columbus, Ohio, USA, a country caught between black and white. I am born not long from the time or far from the place where my great-great-grandparents worked the deep rich land, unfree, dawn till dusk, unpaid, drank cool water from scooped out gourds, looked up and followed the sky's mirrored constellation to freedom. I am born as the South explodes, too many people, too many years, enslaved, then emancipated, but not free. The people who look like me keep fighting and marching and getting killed, so that today, February 12, 1963, and every day from this moment on, brown children like me can grow up free, can grow up learning and voting and walking and riding wherever we want. I am born in Ohio, but the stories of South Carolina already run like rivers through my veins. Wait. So this is, I'm going to read the one that inspired The Day You Begin, which is the picture book. It's called It'll Be Scary Sometimes. My great-great-grandfather on my father's side was born free in Ohio, 1832. Built his home and farmed his land, then dug for coal when the farming wasn't enough. Fought hard in the war, his name in stone now on the Civil War Memorial. William J. Woodson, United States Colored Troops, Union Company B, 5th Regiment. a long time dead but living still among the other soldiers on that monument in DC. His son was sent to Nelsonville, lived with an aunt, William Woodson, the only brown boy in an all-white school. You'll face this in your life someday, my mother will tell us over and over again. A moment when you walk into a room and no one there is like you. It'll be scary sometimes, but think of William Woodson and you'll be all right. So I have to tell the story. I think I told you this on Data. So I was at Politics and Prose in DC, and I had gotten so much of the information about my great-grandparents and everyone from my father's side, from my Aunt Ada. And so I didn't research any of it. I was just like, you know, she's my aunt, she's telling the truth. And then I went, and so I was at Politics and Prose, and NPR was there, and they were filming it, and then it was Cat Chow from Code Switch. And so then we were going to go over to the Civil War Memorial to find his name. And I was like, oh God, please let this be true. and she went ahead of me, and then she got there, and when I'm walking really slowly. And she's jumping up and down, she's like, I found it, his right here. But then it just brought tears to my eyes, because I'm like, we were here, you know, look, he was here, and because he was here, the first time here, yeah, it was amazing.
Dear, when you were describing, I don't know if I read it in the book now, I don't know where I read it, but how you were gathering the snippets of information when you were growing up, people didn't really want to talk or didn't talk about it to the children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, my family, you know, my mom, we went from Ohio, my mom and dad separated. My mom took us back to South Carolina where her parents were, where my grandmother, Georgiana, and my grandfather, Ganar, were. And we lived there until I was around 6 or 7. And then we went to New York City as part of the Great Migration, because that period from the early 1900s to the mid to late 1970s, where millions of Black people were resisting and getting out of areas that were not treating us right. So we went to New York City, and my mom got there because her sister Kay was there, and some other friends of hers. And then my grandmother came after my grandfather died. But, you know, I think it was PTSD. I think, and when you think of anyone coming from the old country to the new country, they're escaping something terrible. And it's not something they want to revisit. And so my grandmother picked cotton at some point. She never talked about that. They both did domestic work at different points in their lives. I think the South was more brutal than I'll ever know in terms of what their stories were. So I think part of the reason they didn't talk about it was because they, you know, Kitty Hudson, they didn't want to bring it back on them. And also the fear that their children, like, they brought us to New York for a better life, and the fact that the idea that their children have to experience some of the horrors that they must have experienced, but also even talking about family things. Once they knew I was serious about being a writer, I would walk in the room and they shut up. They were like, you're gonna go tell the whole world our business, which was not that interesting, but that was their big fear, that I would tell family stories and you know, but the characters in my head were really so much more interesting.
So, it went over okay with the family? I'm not looking at you. 2018, this year, Columbus celebrates the centennial of the Harlem Renaissance and the history of African-related art forms, and I'm wondering where that plugs in maybe to what you do. It's kind of plugs into everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think any artist of African and Caribbean descent would say that the Harlem Renaissance was what opened the floodgates for us, right? The bodega doors opened when Zora Neale Hurston, Alicia Hughes, and County Color and Arnold Lantemps, all these people were writing. And I think that those are the early people I went to kind of see mirrors of myself. I always talk about how Dr. Redeem Simmons Bishop talks about the importance of people having both mirrors and windows and sliding glass doors, all three. But I feel like those were some of the earliest as a kid, you know. There weren't a lot of writers of color in my classroom. You know, I was reading Judy Blume and S.E. Hinton and those people, but it wasn't until I discovered like Mildred Taylor and Langston Hughes and Virginia Hamilton and County Cullen, those writers and Zora Neale Hurston, that I started seeing not only myself in literature, but my possibility as a writer. And so the Harlem Renaissance means a lot to me in the respect that it changed the narrative of our country's literary, quote unquote, canon, but it also changed the narrative for me.
I think we're ready to open it up for questions from the audience. So there's going to be a couple of people.
Thanks for putting in. Okay guys, I'm just leaving the book signing. I really wanted to talk to her, but I was just so pressed with time and everybody wanted to get her to sign their books, but I'm so glad and it was a pleasure meeting her. But let's get home and I'll give you a little peek of what I got. So stay tuned for more, you guys. Hey, what's up everyone? I just wanted to come back to you regarding the event that I went to, which was of Jacqueline Woodson, who is like from Columbus, Ohio, which of course I'm from Columbus, Ohio, so she is from my hometown, and it makes me feel so great, and just it was a pleasure of meeting her, especially from someone who's local and stuff like that, which I really love. And that's the one thing I definitely want to say is that I definitely want to give back to my community as much as I can. I do support Black-owned businesses, any that I know of, or I'll do my research. I try to do that, or anywhere I go, I always go to a Black-owned business because I feel like we should support Black-owned businesses because there's really not a lot out there. But without me ranting and rambling, the 3 books that I got, well, first off, I want to say that if you go to my Booktubeathon wrap up, you'll realize that I had read one of her books, If You Come Softly, which I will leave like a little thing in the cards for you so that you could see that, and you'll just see that how much I just fell in love with that book. But anyway, the books that I got, which this is the newest book that just came out this month, I believe, and it is The Day You Begin. It's a little glare, yeah, but The Day You Begin, it's a children's book, and I thought about my daughter with this. She went into a lot about her conversation with this, which you will see prior to this, of course. And let's just say, let me read the synopsis for you. It says, there will be times when you walk into a room and no one there is quite like you. There are lots of reasons to feel different. Maybe it's how you look or talk or where you're from. Maybe it's what you eat or something just as random. Whatever it is, it's not easy to take those first steps into a place where nobody knows you, but somehow you do it. Jacqueline Woodson's lyrical text and Rafael Lopez's dazzling art celebrate the bravery it takes to go forth, even when you feel like an outsider. And they remind us that sometimes when we reach out and begin to share our story, others will be happy to meet us halfway. So I was really excited to get this book for my daughter. I'm definitely going to be reading this to her if she'll let me. She sometimes is like, no, I want to read it. But yes, so I got this for my daughter and also for my son too. Say hi, buddy. Hi. As you can see him. Say, look, say hi. You want to say hi to the camera? Or you just want to smile at me? That's still good. I still love your smiles. They make me smile. But anyway, yes, I got this basically for my daughter and my son. Even though maybe a girl in there, it still talks about being different, and which is why I love this. So yeah, definitely check this out if you have children or you have a niece, nephew, whoever, if you don't know any kids. But yes, this is definitely a great book, and I can't wait to read this to my children. The next book I got, which I think this came out, I think last year. I think it came out last year. I also got all these books not personalized, but also I got them had her signature, so she wrote a signature on them. Only personalized book is what I'll show you after I show you this book, but it's called Showway, and this is by Jacqueline Woodson, illustrated by Hudson Talbot. And I just thought this book was really pretty, and just the cover is stunning. It says on the back, Suni's family makes showways, quilts with secret meanings that are maps to freedom. Her family tells stories of bravery that inspire courage. Each generation passes on to the next the belief that there is a road to a better place. And I thought this was definitely a great book as well for my children, especially showing that the world will get better one day. And that's where I'm getting from this book. I haven't read it personally, but I'm probably going to, because it's really short, so I'll probably read it right after this video. But I really like this book. It's really just colorful. Sorry, there's a glare, but it's really colorful. I like it. And then you have her signature right there. So I really like this. She said there is a road right there. That's what she signed. And I think there is a road. There is a road to where we need to go in order to make this world a better place. It's going to take a road. It's going to take a journey. So I definitely like this. Let me show you the signature for this book as well, just because, oh, here was the program. Let's see. And this is her signature right there. If you can see it, it's a glare. There you go. Yeah. And so the next book that just came out, of course, along with The Day You Begin, is Harbor Me, of course. And I really am looking forward to reading this. And it's about pretty much a group of kids, different types of kids, black kids, brown kids, white kids, that come together and have a discussion about things that are happening in their lives and their home and stuff with their parents. And I think this was really good because you get different perspectives of what children are feeling. And I think that is definitely number one. If you have children, you want to know what's happening. You want to know what's going on in their lives. That way you have a great impact on them in a positive way. And let me read the synopsis for you. It says, 6 kids discover the power of sharing their secrets and their stories. It all starts when 6 kids are sent to a room for a weekly chat by themselves with no adults to listen in. At first they fear this new unfamiliar and wonder what on earth they'll even talk about. But in the place they dub the ARTT room, a room to talk, they discover it's safe to discuss stuff they usually keep private. A father has recently gone missing, and that starts a conversation about the things causing angst in their lives, from racial... Here you go. Where did I start off? Okay, here we go. From their lives, from racial profiling and fears of deportation to a deep yearning for family history and a sense of belonging. When the 6 of them are together, they find they can express the feelings and fears they usually hide from the world. And together they can grow braver and more ready for the rest of their lives. With her always honest, lyrical writing, acclaimed author Jacqueline Woodson celebrates the power of friendship, open-minded dialogue, and empathy. Harbor Me digs in deep. Hey, you. Harbor Me digs in deep to show how so many of America's social issues affect today's kids and how they creatively learn to forge their way in spite of them. So I was like, yes, I have to get this. I want to read this. I also read this to my children as well. And also I got this. Of course, you can't really see it. There's a glare. But I got this bookmark as well right there when I went to the event. And it says, I think this is what the world is. Stories on top of stories, all the way back to the beginning time. So I thought that was just amazing. So, yep, I definitely love this bookmark. And then I also got this personalized. And it says, for Brandy with love. So yes, so I'm glad, but like I said, this was a great event. I plan on going to more, I believe. Next week I'll be going to another event where Angie Thomas will be here, and she wrote The Hate You Give. So I'm super excited to hear what she has to say about everything regarding okay, here we go. I'm so excited to hear what she has to say about the problems of racial profiling and so on about that. But thank you once again. I hope you really enjoyed this video. And prior to this, you will actually, it'll be a video of Jacqueline Woodson herself talking, and there'll be, you know, discussion questions and stuff like that and stuff. So thank you so much. I hope you really enjoyed this this little vlog sort of that I did. But give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and also hit subscribe and hit that bell as well so that you'll be notified when I upload more videos in the future. But thank you so much, you guys. See ya.